Happy Friday. Hey, Bruce is here. I'm here. And Dune is here. I've been wanting to look at one of the 2D20 system games for quite a while now. I just never had gotten around to it. I want to say that feels like forever ago. Dungeon a friend of the channel, Dungeon Master Masterclass, had kind of run me through a bit of how the 2D20 system worked. I think he was referencing Conan, but it was forever ago, and frankly, I don't remember much of it. But I'd heard, and I want to shout out, I guess, was it Jason's RPG Nerds Variety Cast? I think is the name of the pod. We had a couple folks on there. I should have probably looked it up. I forget their names and I forget the episode, but it wasn't that long ago. And they were talking about 2D20, and one of the guys had mentioned that they felt like this Dune game was I guess, the best distillation of the rules thus far, which makes sense as I think it's the latest one, or maybe if not the absolute latest one, then almost the latest one. Hi, Bruce. Um, so it makes sense that they've done a lot with it, and I was inspired by that to kind of give it a fresh look. And I reached out to Modiphius and I got a hold of somebody, and they were kind enough to send me the digital book and the physical book, which is right here. I'm not someone who is super knowledgeable in all the book stuff. I've only flipped through this briefly. It's a beautiful book. I think if you've bought any of their books, or really any books by any of the kind of main publishers these days, it's beautiful. The spine did not creak or give me any warning alarms when I opened it. We're going to be using the digital copy, which I'll go to in a moment. I will probably mark this as I just will mark things as promotional, just in case. In this case, I reached out to them and asked for it. They didn't send it out to me, but still. But as usual with these, everything I do with the rules mostly is, except for stuff I already know, is I haven't pre-read it. I haven't opened it up other than I just got this in the mail this morning also. And other than cracking it up, just kind of giving it a quick flip through. I know not. I already put part one on the title because I know there's no way I'm going to get through this much book in one sitting. The other thing I was going to mention is oftentimes when I look at books, usually I'm either into it for kind of the mechanical stuff or the setting stuff, but rarely both of them. A lot of times maybe picking up an OSR book and I'm mostly picking up for the setting, or maybe or say Worlds Without Number, where I was more interested in the tables and I hadn't really even looked at the mechanics or the setting. I was kind of interested in that element of it. This one is going to be, if not new, it's kind of cool because I am interested in both. I'm not a Dune maniac, but I do really like Dune. I enjoyed the original, though it's flawed. It's probably still my favorite, actually, overall. The David Lynch Dune movie. My hot take is, I really like Denis Villeneuve, but I think people are really overrating these new Dune movies. But I'll save that hot take for another time. In any case, I am a big fan. I'm curious to see how they did. I've read some. I don't know if I ever read all the Dune books. I remember I read some of those prequels that Frank Herbert's son did a while back, which I didn't love, but I kind of through habit sort of read some of them. It's a really interesting setting, I think, but I don't know if the books really fleshed it out a ton. I think a lot of it was left to how you wanted to interpret it or sort of picture it in your mind's eye. So I'm super curious to how they're going to do that. And of course, I'm super interested in the 2D20 mechanics itself. So without further ado, I have adooed enough. Let's switch on over. Bloop. Bloop. There we go. And we can get into it. I believe I'm going to need my glasses because the text is a bit on the small side. So here we get kind of the intro stuff. And if you are interested in this, the PDF at drive-through, which I linked to, if you're just interested in getting a digital copy, it's on sale at drive-through right now. It's $10 off. I think it was $25. Now it's $15. All right, Bruce, the cat must flow. So just FYI, I wasn't really planning it around any kind of sale, but I don't know if this is still drive-through's kind of summer sale or if this is just happens to be on sale. But I noticed it, so I figured I'd point it out. All right, let's get down to it. One thing I noticed in this particular PDF is it doesn't seem to be linked, except for that. And I don't know if it's just, oh, wait a minute, that is. It could be my reader because I'm using, it's a really nice reader, but maybe it's a little, it's a, is it, I don't know if it's I consider like an off-brand reader. Well, it's not Adobe. So it could be, it could be my reader, but I noticed that the index was linked, but then other things weren't linked, but now it looks like that's linked, but then some of these other things don't seem to be linked. So your miles may vary with the linking. I mean, there's a lot of book here. It looks like, over 300 pages. So it would be nice. Though I guess that we do have I think that the contents, table of contents, can I view that? I'll have to exit. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It looked like I had a pretty good table of contents if you have, like in this PDF viewer, there's a tab on the side kind of thing with all the stuff in there. That seems to be linked pretty well. Okay, chapter 1, introduction. What do I want to read here? Well, I want to read a little bit, right? Yeah, let's we begin in the year 10191 of the imperial calendar, a time of feudal politics, deadly assassins, and political rivalry in a universe where humanity has spread out across thousands of planets. With this core rulebook, you and your friends can take on the roles of agents of a powerful noble house looking to carve out a place in the complex society of the Imperium. Oh, hey, avid gamist, you've played some of this. Nice. What are your give me your thoughts. I don't know anybody who has played. I don't have any firsthand accounts of folks' play experiences that I know. So I would love to know. I liked it. All right, so we get our first sense of what we're going to be doing. We're agents of a powerful noble house. In this age, humanity is not just advanced, but evolved. Some people have minds like computers, able to store and process data with perfect accuracy. Others have learned unique Bene Gesserit martial art skills that allow them incredible control over their nerves and muscles, making them lightning fast, lethal combatants. Some have even developed strange powers of deduction and prophecy, and for this, they are often called quote unquote witches. Then there is the spice. All right, I'm going to leave the rest of that because I'm going to have to be selective, or I'll be reading this for an age. All right, here we go. This might be good because I am definitely new. Oh, okay. So where do I start? Yeah, I don't need. Whoops. I don't need the new. We don't need to read the what is a role playing game stuff. Oh, let's see. All right, so that is. No, I don't know about the 2D20 system. Actually, Modiphius. We get another little kind of internal thing. This is kind of nice. So we get an overview. Okay, so the intro, which is where we are. We can talk about the known universe. And then in creating our, oh, you get to create your own house. Oh, I'm digging that. Creating your character. And then we get to the core rules. All right. And there's more. There's conflict. There's assets. And then the game mastering stuff. And then I guess allies and adversaries. And then an adventure. Okay. I'm not going to cover the what is Dune stuff and what is the role playing stuff. They're good. They have it. I appreciate it. But, if you need those, they're there for you. I'm going to assume we don't need them. All right. So here we have something, an interesting little sidebar. Agents and architects. In Dune, Adventures in the Imperium, we utilize 2 levels of play to allow players to work as powers that be behind the scenes and as agents in direct missions. Architect level play involves the player characters using their assets from a distance to achieve an objective. This might be as a general moving their troops, or as a spy master activating agents as assassins or spies on a mission. In agent level play, the character actually quote unquote gets their hands dirty and performs the missions themselves. Any character might use either style of play to perform missions, and your group may have a preference for one or the other. Which level you use will often be determined by the assets you have available and the way the players decide to face a situation, rather than the adventure or the game master. Oh, okay. I like that. I like that. Some of you may know, because I've mentioned before, I played in a long-running sci-fi game, totally homebrew, but we had a similar setup. It wasn't that clean and neat, but we had each one of us as players had our own, essentially, empire or some kind of galactic civilization, and there would be. We generally, our sessions were split. We do mostly our agents, which were our player characters, going off and doing stuff, and then having kind of that government level thing where we might be moving ships, we might be having kind of mass combat, we might be doing diplomacy, type stuff or that. And they wouldn't always happen. Sometimes we'd just be adventuring, and sometimes we would spend whole sessions just hashing out kind of that higher level architect level. So it's cool that they're kind of baking that in here, which I like. I like it. It speaks to me. Okay, so we got some let's see, some background, okay, about the Imperium, the known universe, the Padishah Emperor Shaddam the Fourth. So this is, I guess we can just say that this is happening maybe either during or slightly prior to the events of the book Dune. Let's see, we got the major houses, the land's red, and then we have under the major houses we have minor houses, right? So we're getting a nice background. Like I said, I'm not reading all this. If you need background on Dune, there's some really great YouTube channels and other things that go in. Matt Colville did some stuff on Dune. I forget there's another channel who did a lot of deep dives on the different Dune books, which is really, really good if you want that. So, but I'm skipping it because it's not really essential. And most of the stuff, if you've seen the movies and some of the stuff around it or the miniseries, maybe you kind of get you get, I think, enough of. I want to say there's always room for more, but I'm just saying for the purposes of this stream, I think we're going to have enough. Navigators, right? And I like that they bolded the important stuff: the Mentats, the Bene Gesserit, the Bene Tlilax, the Sword Masters, the Suit Medical School. Oh, let's see, I missed some stuff. Hey, Bo, and hey, Brian Smith. Let's see. So I have a game that says it's very narrative driven, but not one of those narrative first systems. The big thing is instead of stats, you have drives. And the drives are basically motivation. So you ask yourself, why are you doing something, not just how, whenever you make a check. Oh, that's cool. Brian says that slow knife something something mind killer something something is all they know. All right. And then Bo mentions that Starfire is a great 4X grand strategy rule set. I'll have to put that on my list. I don't do a lot of sci-fi on the channel because kind of fantasy is my first love, but I do really love sci-fi. So I would be happy to do more sci-fi stuff. I'll have to probably someone Bo remind me later or send me a comment somewhere. So it's probably by the end of this and I will probably have forgotten about Starfire. So give me a reminder. And Brian, I slow knife penetrates the shield. Fears the mind killer. I feel you. I mean, that was the thing that the I don't want to get sidetracked. The Lynch's Dune movie, as flawed as it is, to me, has all those great quotable stuff. Now, there's a nostalgia aspect, and just the fact that I've lived with that movie for a long time, and I've only lived with these new Dune movies a little bit of time. But I probably couldn't tell you one line or more than a couple lines from the new movie that really just kind of spoke to me. Either in sometimes, frankly, with the Lynch movie, it's probably not the effect he was going for. All those voiceovers that are telling you what you just saw. Paul and Johnny's love grew. He shall know our ways like they were his own, kind of thing. Where it's like, yeah, we just saw that. We don't need to bludgeon us with that. But there's also the stuff like long live the fighters, and the slow blade penetrates the shield, and that was one of my. And I don't know. I'm sure someone could speak to it for the new movies, but I know in the second movie, it seemed like the shield thing, they just forgot about it. I mean, they would have the shields were on, they would show the force of the shields, and I love the effects of things hitting the shield and them kind of lighting up a bit. But people were just slicing and dicing through them. It didn't seem like there was any concept of slowing anything down. People seemed to be just hacking at folks with the shields at quick speed. So it seemed a little bit odd. Or I guess I found it noteworthy enough that I remarked on it. Like, I thought you weren't supposed to be able to just slice and dice people through the shields. That was the whole point, but didn't seem like it. But I confess I might have missed something. Might have been wrong. Okay, so now we have some errors of play. All right, so it looks like we can pick some times. So you can be in the Butlerian Jihad, which is, I guess, the earliest one. This is when basically the rules and the sort of main mechanisms of the Dune universe are sort of set. This is when I think the machines rise up, and then people have to put them down. There's a whole struggle, and that's where they kind of ditch machines, or thinking machines anyway, for the kind of the mind-driven stuff, like the guild navigators instead of navigational computers, and so on and so forth. Then you have the kind of post-Jihad reconstruction era. Then you have the Imperium era, which has got Paul. And then we've got the ascension of Muad'Dib, and we even go afterwards. So then we have the God Emperor era. And then, oh wow, they really have a lot of different things here. I wonder how much content we're going to get for each one of these. I suppose it doesn't, and especially when we get into this later part, post, kind of even, I'm sort of, I have pretty good, but a bit fuzzy on God Emperor, and then afterwards, Cat wants to go out, but I'm streaming, Bruce. I can't let you out. Sorry. I'm curious how much of these each will have deep support, or I guess the other thing is maybe it's just that there's not that much in the core of the technology and things that changes. Yeah, the politics kind of change, but not a lot of your core systems. You get stuff like no ships and things like that, but it'll be good. Brian says had anti-slowdown hyperfast swords. It was just one of those things. Like I like the new movies; they're beautiful, and it's funny. I guess just to tie this all together, I think that maybe it's just something that's going on in general. Is there's the beauty of a thing, and then there's kind of the depth and sort of a thing. And I think the new movies were beautiful. And I think in many ways they hewed much closer to the books or the book than Lynch's movie. However, I think that people want to read into the beauty a whole lot of depth that isn't actually there. And I think that if you only knew the movie, and I think the other thing is I think that a lot of the people, especially the people who are reviewing the movie, really positive, have really deep Dune knowledge already. So for them, the hint of a thing is enough to just suggest it, right? You show just the little bits of the elephant and they see the whole elephant because they know the elephant's there. They know exactly what it is. My contention is that if you take away that deep knowledge of Dune and you just watch it, if you just got somebody that doesn't know anything about Dune and watch those two movies and then ask them, okay, what's going on? I think they actually have a hard time. They may be caught up in the beauty of it and not mind that they don't get it, but a lot of stuff just isn't clear. They'll just throw things out there and they don't really hammer into like, why is this happening? Why is this important? Like, what is Paul's role in this? How does that role evolve? And kind of making all that connective tissue show. The Lynch movie is kind of nutty, and whatever it is, makes very clear what's going on. Why are these things happening? Who's doing what and why? Like, they're super clear, even though sometimes it's nonsensical, and even though they decide to hit you over the head with it at times. But I think you get a lot more information about things from that one movie than you do from both movies of the new. Oh, Cronenberg. Brian Smith wants a Cronenberg Dune. That would be cool. All right, so we have an example of play. I'm all down with examples of play. I had an interesting discussion with the author of The Sea of Sands, who is very anti-example of play. The argument being, which is interesting, that it's this idea of kind of you're giving someone like a rule book as a bunch of instructions or suggestions, and then really that's it. Do what you want with them. I'm not anti example of play. I really like them because I like to see sort of authorial intent, even if it ultimately is important. Because his comment to me in return was like, well, what is it? Like, who cares? If you're doing it wrong, who cares? Right? Let people do it however they want to. And there's certainly an interesting idea to that. But I am pro example of play. So let's read it. Let's see what we got. Hopefully it's not super long. All right, where we go. We're zooming in here. Sorry if going the wrong way. No, there we go. All right, on the streets of Arrakeen. The assassin is getting away, says Helen, the game master. Taran isn't worried about that at the moment, replies Sam, who plays Taran, a Suk doctor. He's more concerned about Nasir. You said he just collapsed the instant he was hit with a dart from the assassin? Sounds like poison. I want to examine him quickly to see if there's anything I can do. We don't want the heir to House Corsair getting killed on our watch. Well, Kara isn't a doctor, so she's going after the assassin, says Claire. Her character, Kara, is a Bene Gesserit-trained noblewoman. What? You're the heir to our house. We can't lose you. We can't lose both you and Nasir, says Sam. Nasir is my fiancé, and anyone trying to assassinate him is going to have me to deal with. Anyway, Kara isn't waiting around to discuss this. She's chasing down the assassin. You said he was getting away, didn't you, Helen? I did, but there's still time to catch him. Good. I'm after him. Damn it, we can't leave Nasir not lying here. I knew we should have taken more guards. This is the last time we ignore security because it's a shop quote, just a shopping trip in the bazaar, says Sam. So you're splitting the party, grins Helen. Let's deal with Taryn looking over Nasir first. Then we'll come back to Kara and the assassin. Helen knows that there was a deadly poison on the dart that hit Nasir. She decides that for Taryn to neutralize it, he needs to beat a difficulty of 4 on an understand skill test. Now, keep in mind, they haven't covered any of the mechanics yet. So they're just, we're just going to read along, and I'm not, maybe we'll come back to it later. We'll have a chance to interpret it, but I don't understand anything more than you do at this point about how these different tests and everything worked. Oh, Bo says he never read the book, saw the Lynch movie as a kid, and always felt like it was a highlights reel. Fast forward during Dune Part 1, haven't seen Part 2. I mean, the Lynch movie, it is kind of a highlight reel with some things thrown in. It absolutely is. It would have been awesome if he would have been able to get the space to do that. And like I said, I love Villeneuve, and I don't know if this was something that really should have been a TV show and something that you could stretch out in a prestige TV way over 8 episodes and really kind of delve into it. But I do think that there were some interesting decisions that I'm not sure that I agree with, and what he chose to keep and what he chose to ditch, and kind of what they spent a lot of time on, and so on and so forth. I hear you about not being in the mood to watch TV shows or movies. I'm trying to get back into reading more books, because I've let kind of my book reading habit. I mean, that's kind of where these streams actually help out a lot, because I read a lot more stuff because the streams kind of, in a good way, kind of forced me to do it. Helen knows that there was a deadly poison on the dart that hit Nasir. She decides that for Taryn to neutralize it, he needs to beat a difficulty of 4 on an understand skill test. Taryn decides his faith belief applies, and he luckily brought some of his medical equipment, a useful asset. His Suk Doctor trait also gives him a bonus. It's still going to be a tough test to succeed at, though. I think I should use some of our momentum on this one, says Sam. Not so fast, replies Claire. Kara needs to chase down the assassin and take him down. Don't spend it all. Okay, I'm only spending 1 point, but I could do with more. You can always give me some threat points, Helen quietly suggests. I don't like the way she's smiling. Spend a couple more momentum if you need to, but leave me something, says Claire. Sam spends the points from their momentum pool and gathers his dice. Thankfully, the roll is a success, and he administers an antidote in time. Nasir will still be unconscious for a while, but he won't die. With Nasir stable, Helen returns to Kara chasing the assassin. They need to make opposed tests to see if Kara can catch up with the assassin. Luckily, he doesn't have much of a head start, and Kara can utilize a talent she learned from her Bene Gesserit training to push her muscles to run faster. She catches up with the assassin as he ducks into a small alleyway. I'm drawing my knife, announces Claire as Kara closes in on her prey. Realizing he's not going to escape, he turns to face you, drawing a nasty-looking blade himself. Okay, he wants to play. Let's do this. Kara and the assassin engage in a conflict action. While Kara is faster, they are evenly matched for skill. As the assassin knows the area, the street itself becomes a trait he can use for a bonus. Ooh, I like that. When they engage, neither manages a clear victory, but Kara rolls a complication and becomes wounded. So the wound in your leg is going to be a penalty, and you've got no momentum left. Okay, you can have some threat. I need some more dice. Excellent. That'll come in handy on the assassin's attack roll. Helen and Claire roll the opposed contest between Kara and the assassin. This time the assassin wins. It is then up to Helen to describe the action. The assassin has Kara backed up against a nearby wall, so he shoulder barges her against it, knocking the wind out of her. Kara's knife arm is pinned, and she struggles to break free before he can drive his knife into her. But before he can deliver a killing blow, Kara sees the flash of a white-bladed knife held high before it is driven into his back. He falls to the ground, dead. What? Who? Damn it, we wanted to capture the assassin, not kill him. You realize Kara's alive, right? Standing over the assassin's body is a Fremen woman dressed in a standard Abba robe like everyone else. You think she might be the same one you noticed was watching you before you set off for the bazaar this morning. She looks at you intensely and says, Someone does not want your wedding to happen. We Fremen need to see it succeed. Then she vanishes back into the crowd on the main street. Kara will chase after her. Not with that leg wound, she won't. You might want to return to where you left Taryn and Nasir again, as Kara doesn't know if Taryn... come on, lunch. Where was I? Kara doesn't know if Taryn managed to help him. Fair point. Looks like this wedding is going to be a lot more complicated than we expected. I'd better go and see if is my fiancé still alive. Whew. Okay. Hey. Ooh, Ghost Ship Derelict. That sounds like a cool novel. All right. So what do we get from this example of play? So we get one, just a sample. We get some rolls of the dice. We get call out on a couple of skills, or one skill really. Understand, which I guess is to just I guess the understand here is to determine what kind of poison, so that you can get the right antidote. I imagine what that would be. And I really like this. This is something I really like, kind of in the kind of Pendragon sense of having these things, but they're kind of mechanized. So Terran, I would love if this were a little bit fleshed out. Kind of say, what does he say? Like, I believe my faith is that whatever, what is it? But in any case, you have this belief, you get to apply it. We understand that there's some kind of momentum pool that the party shares, and there's also some kind of threat pool that the GM builds up and is able to use on things like enemy actions. So we have the whole party shares this momentum pool, so we can do that, and then that's probably also an interesting thing. And depending on your group and your players, you think of something that can just be awesome, or it could be a source of contention. So like here they talk back and forth about who's going to spend and how much. Hey, leave me some of the momentum pool, right? It could be easy in the wrong hands, let's say, for someone to grab more of that pool and leave other people hanging. But I like the fact that you can, in a sense, it's a way for everybody to aid everybody else, because I can build momentum and then someone else's character can use that momentum to do something. So I think that's pretty cool. The DM did kill their own enemy, but obviously there's a plot here going on, right? And if it's kind of a narrative, if there's a narrative aspect here, that's it. We can look at, if you want to look at it in, so there's a couple ways from what, who was it that said it? It was Avid Game is talking about the kind of a little bit of a narrative bit here. Then maybe that was part of the whole thing. Obviously, it could have gone several different ways. The guy could have escaped and whatnot, but that there was this, I don't even want to call it like a safety valve, but this concept that they were being watched, that was something also established. And so there's this kind of moment of, if we want to say about what is this scene for in a narrative sense, it was revealing the fact that this marriage is dangerous or it's opposed, but also that there's support. Maybe in different circumstances, the agent would have revealed themselves differently or not at all. That's right. Plans within plans. Okay, so we get the known universe. So now we're getting into the setting stuff. Empires do not suffer emptiness of purpose at the time of their creation. It is when they have become established that aims are lost and replaced by vague ritual. From the words of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. The history of humanity. All right, we're gonna get. Oh yeah, there's a lot going on here. So we have two times, and I'm gonna skim. I'm really the setting parts I'm most interested in, the ones that are going to be mechanized in those one or more of those timelines that we can jump into, or moments in the timeline, or eras, I guess, in the timeline we can jump into. So some of this other stuff I'm just gonna kind of glance over. And again, I appreciate that we have kind of bolded what it's about, so I can kind of say that it's easy for me to skim. So the humanity came from Altera. They didn't have faster than light travel. They formed an old empire, and they found kind of ended up spreading out to covering what called the known universe. We have a caste system, then we have the thinking machines, and the old empire expands. The time of the Titans, composed of scientists, geniuses, and fallen nobility, they possessed the tools needed to topple the Imperium. Xerxes, an exiled prince, gave financial backing to the plan of General Agamemnon, who outmaneuvered the old empire to allow the technical genius Barbarossa unfettered access to the imperial network. Agamemnon deduced that turning the thinking machines into an army would let them topple the Imperium with minimal violence. While the military was skilled and well trained, they were no match for the near endless ranks of thinking machines scattered throughout human space. The defeated human army saved the dethroned emperor in 1287 before Guild, and the Titans assumed control of the known universe. And I think this is all from the prequel novels. I remember some of that. So we get a whole bunch of stuff. a game that says establishes what the current battle is about, exposes the potential for threat, and demonstrates a potential avenue to seek aid. Talking about that encounter. Yep. But it's again, we're seeing one, right. So the example of play is obviously in some ways an ideal situation in terms of what we're being shown. But what you can kind of glean from that is within this moment. However, it'll probably take us a couple streams to get to the game master tools, but one can imagine that even within there, we can see where there were multiple possibilities. They could have shot the guy misses the roll, that noble dies, and the wedding's off, and that might change all kinds of stuff. Do they catch the assassin? If they don't catch the assassin, maybe the whether the assassin succeeded or not, then they don't realize, or they find out that the Fremen, that they have if not a potential ally in the Fremen, at least this kind of interested party in the Fremen. Of course, either way, they will learn that someone's opposing them in either that opposition has succeeded, and then what happens next or whatnot. So it doesn't feel like it's necessarily an on rails kind of moment, because if it was, you wouldn't have rolled for the poison. Either you would have said, oh my gosh, they're hurt and whatever, but it missed, the dart hit, but it happened to hit their armor, but they're hurt, but they're not dying because we don't want them to die, and so then we're going to go, and now it's kind of an on rail. You could easily turn it into sort of an on rail situation. But clearly, the intent of that example play is to show that it is not an on rail situation. That it took that player and their use of the skills and the beliefs and everything to save that person from dying, and for the other person, it took their work to catch the assassin. And maybe there was a little bit of a save in terms of the Fremen operative aiding them, but that also could have been the one thing we didn't see, just because of that, is the GM's intent. Was it that they were rolling dice, and she's chasing after the assassin, and that Fremen's chasing after her, or how that played out, or if it was just like, oh yeah, right, this is kind of fated to happen if they go this route, that kind of thing. I have a game that says the current battle, parenthetically the marriage, the potential threat, the assassin's employers, and the avenue for aid, the Fremen. Yep. And we'll see how they like to build. When we get into the game master tools, we will hopefully learn more about how they suggest building out these adventure pieces. Okay, so that's so we're in the prequel area, the rise of the Cymex. Let's see, these are all about the thinking machines. Then we get the Butlerian Jihad coming in. We get the Mentats. We get the fall of thinking machines, the rise of the Empire, the Padishah Emperor, the major and minor houses, the Landsraad, the High Council, the establishment of the great schools. So you get the Suk Medicine School, medical school. You get the Mentats, and then eventually I don't know when the Bene Gesserits show up. I think the Bene Gesserits are pretty old. They might. Do they become okay? So it looks like they come from the Rosak sorceresses. All right. Shipping Guild, the Spacing Guild, which becomes the Spacing Guild. Oh yeah, and Chom, get those Chom contracts. The Great Convention. Ultimately, all major and minor houses had essentially the same shared needs: commerce and the ability to travel across the vastness of space. Now lacking a machine enemy, each house shared the same threat to their existence. The very arsenals that they had amassed to fight the jihad could now be turned against one another. To ensure that their needs were continued to be met, that the threat of attack within the Landsraad was mitigated, the great houses signed a treaty establishing an alliance to stop anyone from ever again using atomic weapons on one another and on their holdings, particularly upon their subjects. This great convention saw the Imperial throne, houses, and Spacing Guild reach an accord. It marked a historic moment in humanity's evolution, paralleling ancient meetings of old Terra by banning weapons of mass destruction. After the horrific omnious plagues unleashed during the years of the Jihad, the strictures of the Great Convention also firmly prohibited all use of biological plagues and weaponry. Well, there you go. I guess Paul broke it at the end. Or maybe, I don't know, do we argue, does his use of the House Atomics to break the shield wall, does that break the Great Convention? So here's some interesting stuff, which I think is probably pertinent. Lasgun's shields in the Great Convention. When a lasgun beam hits a shield, the effect is instant, devastating, and pseudo-atomic. A pseudo-atomic explosion occurs that lays waste to the area and anything within it, possibly even for miles around. For this reason, the Great Convention has outlawed the use of this effect in any way, in the same way it outlaws the use of atomic weapons. For most player characters, that will be enough of a warning. Unfortunately, some players may still think that a few suicide troops with las guns might end a rival quickly and efficiently. They would be wrong. And the fact that even the Harkonnens, or Harkonnens, depending, I don't know how they're supposed to be pronounced. I prefer Harkonnen to Harkonnen, but I could be wrong. Even the Harkonnens will not stoop to his method. This method should be a clue as to the terrible consequences that will occur. Most houses will not take las guns into a battle where they even suspect a shield may be present. Whether it is accidental or intended, any las gun shield interaction breaks the Great Convention, the importance of which cannot be overstated. It is an agreement around which peace in the universe remains possible. Nobles want to know that when they are shielded, they are safe, and that there are limits to the myriad ways their enemies will attempt to destroy them. Anyone who breaks the status quo for any reason threatens to shake the very foundations of civilization in the Imperium. This means that any house that knowingly or unknowingly breaks any of the rules of the Great Convention will be crushed. The Landsraad cannot afford to allow any other option. The Aaron house will be destroyed, its holdings divided among its peers, making them less inclined towards mercy anyway. For the players, their characters' families, and their house, this means the game is over. No warnings, no excuses, no apologies, no quarter. All right, well, I'm really glad I read that one because it's a good point, right? It's a good idea because I could definitely see players going, well, who's going to know, who's going to say if we wink, wink, nudge, nudge, use this little trick, right? This is the maybe the Dune equivalent of what, like putting two bags of holding or whatever the thing, what put a bag of holding inside another bag of holding and do something crazy like that. It's like, yeah, it'll do a whole bunch of stuff, and then guess what? Everybody's destroying you because they just can't allow it. And I like that. Like, you read this, and I would probably, if my players didn't have this book, I would read this to them. I think maybe even in its entirety, and just know, like, you do this, it's over. And not just for you. Like, you may think, well, we'll burn this PC and I'll come back as somebody else in the family, but our house will have gotten this great victory. It's like, nope, everything is gone. So, be forewarned. Okay, where are we at now? So we get a timeline, which I'm not going to read, but I like timelines. Overview of the Imperium. So we talked about the lands, right? We talked about the Great Convention already. So basically three major factions: the Landsraad Alliance of Houses Major and Minor, the Emperor and his fearsome legions of fanatical Sardaukar, and a third force, a coalition between the Spacing Guild, which provides transport, and the omnipresent business conglomerate known as CHOAM, which governs all commerce in the Imperium. And of course, you start to read about the spice melange, which is great. So I'm going to skip the Spacing Guild and CHOAM stuff for the most part. Like I said, I am interested in the setting stuff, but I want to see the stuff I'm in is where it kind of is intermixing more with mechanics and not so much the background. So I do like some Sardaukar. Let's see. So life within the Imperium. Let's see. The standard unit of currency is the Solari. Everyone speaks Galak. We got the Imperial House. Noble houses, commoners. There is slavery, unfortunately. Technology. We have transportation. Let's see. Spaceships. Okay. Information technology. Communication across distances is handled with either a communinet transceiver or a method called distrans, where a recorded message is stored into the memory of a living being and played back when desired, often with a required code to unlock it. Physical media includes film books, Shigawire readers, Minimic encoders, memocorders, and other media players and projectors, like an iPod Touch, if you will. Household technology. The most significant development is that of the suspensor, a gravity-defying device capable of lightening any load. From large vehicles to personal rigs, suspensors are common throughout the Imperium. Similarly, globes, often fitted with suspensors, provide light cheaply and can be moved wherever desired. Most food consumed within the Imperium is prepared by traditional means rather than through industrial methods. Many cooks even prefer to prepare meals by hand from natural ingredients. Oh, look at that. That's nice. Personal armaments. Few within the Imperium have access to sophisticated weaponry other than the members of the houses and their retainers, and criminals such as outlaws, assassins, or smugglers. Most hand weapons consist of bladed and or pointed weapons, garrots, or hidden darts and needles. Because remember, no las guns. Or you as much as powerful as las gun may be, the Great Convention means you got to be so careful that if you're going to get into a scrape, much better to have simple weapons, which I always liked as a nice workaround. In Star Wars, you have Jedi and swords, and since they can do stuff right with the swords, and they can block lasers with the swords, and so there's kind of a reason for Jedi, or an excuse anyway, to have Jedi sword fighting, essentially, when you might think, well, why not just blast them? It's because they can constantly knock your blasters away, or blaster fire away. In this case, the fact that you have this interaction between the las guns and shields means that since most people are going to have that kind of shield generator on them, going to be shields around them, it's pointless to have those kind of things around. So you have to kind of, what's your workaround? It's just old-fashioned weapons, or the things like the darts and needles and that kind of stuff. I have a game that says, in terms of, if you were to run afoul of the Great Convention, that the Guild instantly bans them from pass on their highliners and offers affordable rates to those who seek to invade said rebel house. Yeah, I mean, essentially, the world's just going to burn you. I don't even know if it would be particularly fun to play that out, because if you're playing as a house, maybe it's just it's like setting all the alarms or whatever in or whatever it's called in shoot, what's the game I'm looking for? Like Grand Theft Auto. Like, yeah, I'm gonna set everything to like the highest alert levels without any cheat codes, and they will never go down, and I'm just gonna run around until I get killed. It would basically be what the game would devolve into. Okay, the invention of the personal energy shield has transformed hand-to-hand fighting, and most fighters go without any more than lightly armored battle dress. Due to the Holtzman effect, the personal shield makes lasgun usage extremely dangerous. That's just that, right, where the shield and lasgun creating that atomic kind of blast. Even to accidentally trigger such an explosion, wait, we already saw that. Okay. For this reason, the use of lasguns is shunned in warfare, as a stray shot can bring catastrophic destruction upon all the participants. And remember, that's not even a small explosion. They said for miles around. So one of those things goes off. It's not just, oh, okay, well, that guy exploded. It's like, no, miles, which means that you've devastated probably all your forces, including maybe yourself. Or, I mean, I'm assuming if you like one of your troops fired it, but not your PC, but you're probably gone. Everybody's gone. Your army's gone. Yeah, their army's gone too, but it's mutual destruction from Holtzman effect. Probably not worth it. Hey, Tristan, how are you? Okay, so that's some good stuff. Not technically mechanics, but it kind of gets you into how the game works. The great schools, we get the Bene Gesserit, the Suk School, Mentats, Sword Masters of Ganaz, Faith and Religion, Orange Catholicism, and the Zen Sunni. It's difficult to be an atheist. And they have some other faiths. That's great, but I'm not going to spend too much time there. Also, the Landsrad. The far-flung. The far-flung, it sounds Germanic, but I'm not positive, is the governing political structure that holds the Landsrad together, a form of hereditary feudalism as has existed many times throughout human history. The far-flung caste system is the hierarchical organization that extends from the emperor to the major houses, to the houses minor, then to the Siradar governors who administrate imperial law upon individual planets. The emperor owns all within the Imperium, and it is only by the emperor's will that planetary fiefdoms are granted to be administrated by the houses of the Landsred. The unofficial model of the Landsred is, quote, a place for every man, and every man has a place. Indeed. Magnus, you are indeed late for Dune, but don't worry. I'm sure there's going to be multiple streams for this. And of course, you can always rewind to the beginning. Hey, RPG Dad. Okay, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time on this either. It is all cool background. Read it when you get into the game. Yeah, avid gamist affirms that basically the lasgun shield explosion is basically a small nuke. Yep, more the reason not to do it. And it's just cool because you get this kind of fantasy. I don't know if people consider Dune sci fantasy as opposed to science. You know, I know people like to say that Star Wars is fantasy, but to me, if it takes place in the kind of a space with ships and things like that, to me, it's sci-fi. I kind of prefer. I would call it maybe sci fantasy. I know there's not much science involved, and maybe that's where the fantasy part comes from. But Dune is in an interesting spot too because a lot of it ends up being essentially fantastic. They just, as opposed to maybe Star Wars that really doesn't explain a whole lot. In Dune, he did a really good job of laying the groundwork in some ways for why you're running around with swords and doing things this way and having kind of a, the Bene Gesserit essentially are kind of Jedi like, or I guess Jedi are Bene Gesserit like, since the Bene Gesserit came first, right? So kind of that sort of whole situation, and then you have folks like, they have sort of mental powers, and you have the weird guild navigators doing that stuff, and that there's just a real, you can, there's some sort of whatever pseudo scientific reasoning behind it. It's not just thrown out there. Like maybe Star Wars is a little bit more loosey goosey with that stuff, and here they've kind of, no. Here's why. I'm going to tell you why they're using swords and they're not using laser guns, even though laser gun technology exists. Here's why. Right, this thing. If this happens, everything blows up. Nobody wants that, and so it's outlawed. Okay, the legal process in Landsrat. All right, I'm not. And we have a sidebar on the War of Assassins. All good stuff. I mean, this and just by the way, like the artwork is really. I mean, it's hard to even comment on this stuff because I feel like I know people have been kind of down on Wizards of the Coast art recently. And I haven't really looked at it, so I don't have an opinion one way or another. But very nice art, very well laid out. I guess the thing is that's kind of the expectation these days. I mean, even from kind of small indie things have amazing art and layout. But I feel like when you get up to the level of the kind of free leagues, Modiphius and beyond, like everything is pretty darn pretty. I would be surprised to run into anything kind of not somewhat beautiful, unless I just didn't like the style. Tristan asked how much influence Herbert might have had on Lucas. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if anyone's kind of asked him that. Though, Lucas, I mean, Lucas has been pretty open with his influences. I don't know if Dune ever came up. It's just interesting that as I was going to mention, Bene Gesserit, like being like Jedi like. I'm like, yeah, they kind of are, but the Bene Gesserit are obviously like if you were going to put in sort of old school D&D kind of terms, right? If the Jedi are law, the Bene Gesserit, well, I guess the Bene Gesserit kind of law. I guess it would be like Bene Gesserit would be maybe lawful evil versus lawful good for the Jedi. They're kind of almost a different sort of Sith, or maybe they wouldn't even. Maybe they would say they were neutral. I don't know. In the movies, the Bene Gesserit seem kind of evil, right? I don't know. They don't seem like they're doing it because there's the evil that comes up because there's something they want to do that maybe you might look at it and say, well, this is actually a good thing, but they're just going about it in the wrong way. I mean, they're definitely going about it in bad ways. But in the movies, at least, both the Lynch Dune and the Villeneuve Dune, they seem to kind of want power and they want to have that consolidated in their hands and control it. And I don't even know if they even make the excuse of, well, somebody needs to manage this, and we can't let the kwisatz haderach just roam around. Somebody's got to kind of keep it in check for the good of everybody, right? Kind of thing. Maybe in the books they flesh that out more, where it's a more nuanced view, but they seem like they're pretty bad. Magnus says that Warhammer 40K basically ripped Dune off completely and dialed it up to 11. I've never read Warhammer. I got to do that on the stream one time. Well, I'm sorry, I've never read 40K, and I have Warhammer Fantasy, but I haven't really done an in-depth read of that either. Okay, so we got the different houses, which I'm gonna sort of skip over. If you've watched any of the movies, House Carino, that's the Emperor. House Harkonnen, the Baron. House Atreides, that's Paul and company. And Tlilax, that's where you get things like the face dancers and the was it the one of the Gullah, which show up. I mean, they play a big part. The Gola, I think is what they're called. They play a pretty big part in the books. I think God Emperor and Beyond. That's sort of a bigger thing because there's something I don't remember exactly why or what makes him so special. But Duncan Idaho, they keep bringing him back for reasons I can't remember, and so they're able to put him in these what they call like axolotl tanks or something, and they're able to kind of generate or give birth to new ones and all kinds of funny business. So now we get about Chome and commerce, which again, it's good stuff, and I'm glad they have it, but I'm just for our purposes, I'm going to kind of skip over more stuff about the spice. Spacing Guild, same thing. Ooh, how do they show? I'm kind of curious at the rendering here. Oh, they kind of show. I really like they don't, did they show the Guild Navigators at all in the new Dune? I think I might have been kind of bummed out. I really like the way they showed up. I mean, one thing with David Lynch is he really has these kind of visions and he really goes for it. And I really love the way the Guild Navigator looks. And I mean, they had a beautiful sort of Art Deco, would be Georgian or Victorian stylings of everything, including the thing moving, the container moving across the marble floor, and the funky like guild underling guy who's like, I don't know if he's like mopping to wet the thing to make it easier to move or what he's doing, but he's kind of like they're what is that? What's that Winter Olympics game where they're like sweeping the thing on the ice, but he's gonna doing that. Yeah, no navigators. And the other thing with the new, and I'm not trying to turn this into a bashing on the new Dune. I should probably do just like an appendix N on the new Dune where I can kind of get into it more. But they really did the mentats wrong in there. I wish they would have just not had the mentats in there because they're just kind of lame in their little like 2 minutes of screen time that the mentats get. It's just to me, I remember thinking that the first one, like, why even have the mentats in there if you're gonna do them like that? Just get rid of it. Just you don't need them at all if you're not gonna if you're just gonna gloss over them that fast. Curling, thank you. Yeah, they let me out. Order of the Mentats, and I love Christopher Walken, but I don't know, man. I don't know. He's not my emperor. I'm sorry. He is not my emperor. I'll take what's the guy's name in Lynch's Dune? Shoot, I'd have to look it up. But that guy, he I don't know if it was just the costuming or just the way they had him looking. But good God, man. They just made him look like kind of like a hobo. Like you gotta Jose Ferrer. That's what I was thinking of. Jose Ferrer is freaking badass. Look, okay. Hey, McJack. I said it before on record. I'm on record now. I'll do a thing about it now that maybe people have some distance. I enjoyed these new Dune movies, but I feel like people are vastly overrating them. But of course, no shade if you love these Dunes, but man, look at Jose Ferrer in his Dune get up, and then look at Christopher Walken in his Dune get up. I will totally if someone wants to tell me, which I'm sure someone will, that this is what the Emperor is more supposed to look like. Hey, I guess cool, but man, is it Juice of Sappho? I said Safu. Oh well, man, that's it's just not a formidable. He just doesn't look. And the thing is, Christopher Walken can look formidable, but maybe he's just because he's older, and just the way they got to get up. He does not look like he's much. And plus, it seems like they kind of move. They don't really show him doing a lot of the scheming, like the Lynch movie. The Emperor's scheming, and they don't show you a lot of it, but they show you enough to kind of understand that he's pulling the strings. They don't really do that. Like Walken's like walking around the garden, and he's kind of like, oh, and it's like, oh, you were behind it. Oh. but they don't really. I don't think they make as good a connection as they could have with the fact that this is this is what this is what kind of he's up to. Okay, so we got Mentat stuff. Love me a nice Mentat, or I'll even take a twisted Mentat. Mentat Piter de Vries, Mentat Piter de Vries. Ah, Thufir, he may be old, but he's still one of the finest Mentats in the universe. That's and here I'll say this. I don't know. I don't think, and this is not necessarily good or bad, but my friends and I have been quoting Lynch's Dune for what, 30 years? When did Lynch's Dune? When did Lynch's 1984? Yeah, 94, 2004, 2040, 40 years? Okay. I don't think 40 years from now people are going to be quoting Villeneuve's Dune. I don't. And it's not even to say that that means that the Lynch movie's better, because it's not better. It's not better made. But there's something about it, like those movies. Sometimes it's a B movie, sometimes a movie that's, it's a super flawed movie, but I think it's in terms of having a cultural staying power with people, I would be super surprised if 40 years from now Villeneuve's Dune is still living in people's brains. People don't quote things anymore, they just meme them now. Well, that's true. Are there even any memeing things from the new Dune? Is new Dune even really been memed much? So I'm just scrolling through. They're going through the Bene Gesserit, which is also good, but I don't think there's anything really mechanical going on here yet. So I'm trying to just stay on target. We'll do this one. And did they do this in the new Dune? Because this is something that they threw in Lynch's Dune. I think they did have it once or twice. But I feel like in the new Dune. But I feel like Lynch's Dune set this up a little bit better too. But anyway, the litany: I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Bum. Oh, Lisan Al Gaib. Yeah. They did make Stilgar a bit silly. I think they did a better job, because one of the things that the Lynch's Dune does a terrible job at is really the concept of him praying. Because one of the things I think that the new Dune does much better than Lynch's Dune is establishing the fact that Paul and Jessica are willingly deceiving the Fremen, right? In Lynch's Dune, it feels like more that there's the prophecy, Paul is fulfilling the prophecy, and that's it. Whereas, and that wasn't really the point of Dune the book. The new movies get much closer to that, which is that here's how this belief, it was fake, we know it, we learn it's not a real belief, even real, it was not organic, let's say it was placed there, and they are exploiting it for their advantage, which is the whole reason why it was placed there, which is an amazing trick. The Bene Gesserit seeding these things across worlds, so that when they get there and they need it, they could pull out this thing that was seeded there however many hundreds of years before. And so I think the new movie's trying to show Stilgar as succumbing to this deception, and which they're purposefully doing, and then becoming a fanatic. So I get it. I do think maybe the performance, or just the way they have it, does make him, as he's kind of in the fanatical part, like in the second part of the movie where he's more or less becomes that true believer, does seem maybe a little bit sillier. I don't know if there's a way to do it that wouldn't seem silly when someone's just kind of all over what you're doing and like, see, like it is like Lisan Al Gaib. Maybe there's a way to do it, but yeah, I agree. It didn't work completely for me either, in that I kind of kept looking like, hey, he's kind of being a bit of a goof now. But that's also maybe making a statement about fanatics and fanaticism. Brian asks, this game playable if you only seen the two new movies or not read the book? Oh yeah, I mean, look, Brian, I know I'm kind of scrolling through here, but you're getting tons of background if you want. on everything, and I totally think you get it. It looks like I would feel confident all the stuff I'm scrolling through that you're going to get enough to run the game and without the books. And the books, I don't know, at least the first book, I don't know if you get a whole lot about all the setup of the Imperium. You get kind of hints, right? And I think in other books they may flesh out a bit, right? But the books are pretty, I think, broad on. I think they have a lot of room to maneuver in terms of the Imperium. I think if you just read the kind of background they're giving you here, I'm sure they've had to flesh out parts where Herbert sort of hints at it or maybe just mentions it offhandedly, but doesn't really go in there because the books don't take place on a whole bunch of these worlds. They're pretty focused on, on the Atreides and their descendants and these sort of pockets of things in the planet. Everything else, I think, is kind of just giving you enough to sort of, you can sort of, silhouette it almost like, but not delve into. I think you'd be fine, I guess is what I'm saying. Long story short, too late. I think you'd be fine. Magnus talking about the prophecy is that it is not entirely untrue because the kwisatz haderach is real. Yes, right. It is true. Magnus adds that the appendix in the back of Dune makes an implication that the Bene Gesserit may have been guided by some sort of higher dimensional intelligence to bring about the kwisatz haderach. Yeah, no, it is cool, absolutely. But in terms of the of Stilgar and how he does it, it's been so long since I've read the first Dune book. I don't know if Stilgar also comes across as being goofy, or if that's just a product of the movie. But the movie, it just makes some interesting choices in what it does, and I felt like, especially at the end of the first movie, I felt like that for having watched a 2.5 or 3 hour, however long that first movie was, they don't actually know a whole lot if you just look at what the movie is showing you and not inputting all this stuff that you may know. And I just think it's kind of funny to think about it because that's also the same thing that a lot of folks will speak about the OSR and a lot of, or maybe more NSR books, that they get by on the fact that they're maybe pretty and they got some tables and stuff, but they're playing on the fact that you as the purchaser already have a whole bunch of stuff in your brain, so you just backfill whatever that they can all they don't have to show the whole elephant. They can just sort of give you some hints of it and you'll just fill in the rest of it, right? But if you don't have that background and you look at the book, then it just feels like a mess or just incomplete. And that's kind of maybe a little bit how I feel about these movies, but I'm not trying to sidetrack. All right, so we're getting into Dune and the actual Arrakis, the Fremen still suit. All right, let's see. Stuff Shai Hulud. All right, so we're getting stuff about Caladan, Cala City. Point of interest, Cala City. Castle Caladan. Gidi Prime. Home of House Atreides. Sworn enemies. Or so, home of House Harkonnen. Sworn enemies of House Atreides. Home to the Baron. Okay. Great. We got a bunch of these. We got Ix. Oh, Ix looks kind of cool. Get Kaitane, which is home of the Emperor. Portrin, is that where the Sadakar come from? Is that somewhere else? No, that's the prison planet. Is which one? Is that that's okay. That's Kaitane. Where's the prison? Riches. Seleucia Secundus. This is where the Sadakar come from. I'm probably gonna. So we're already over an hour, so I'm probably going to. We'll see to the end of this. I'm going to zoom out because I think I'm not really reading it. I'm just kind of scrolling through it. Probably go a little bit faster too. Whoops. Okay, so I guess I'll end it here. So we got through. We talked about the movies, and we did some things on the game. Did the what do we call it? The example of play, which I think was illuminating. I'm really looking forward to getting into the beliefs and things, because I feel like that's something that I've been working on myself, kind of porting out of something like Pendragon to use in kind of more of a rules light sort of OSR sense, because I like it. I think it's a neat way to implement something kind of alignment-ish, but maybe a little bit different than alignment. So I'm curious on the interplay, how they're going to work it. One of the tricks, I think, with those kinds of systems, and we'll see how they do it, is the kind of positive and negative one. So it's what I mean by that is how, like, or you could say, let's say, just to make it super simple, if you were just like, hey, you know what, I'm saving somebody, so I'm lawful, so I'm going to use law to give me advantage, or I'm going to use my alignment of law to help here. That's great, right? But by the same token, is it just going to be that, or is there going to be something where you do something that's clearly chaotic and you have to roll against your law in a different way? Now, Pendragon kind of has that, where you'll have these things, and that you'll, since there's a set, there's a defined set of these. Me, as if I'm a referee, I don't need to know, let's say, what your honor, your how strong your belief in honor or fair. Well, I don't even remember what the different ones in Pendragon are, but I can just say, let's say your loyalty. I can just say, like, that seems like something you might need to test your loyalty to see if you would do that or not, right? And I'm curious how they're going to do that here, because I don't want it to be, especially outside of, I mean, I get it in a sort of a Pendragon sense, you're kind of playing a knight. In an Arthurian sense, the idea that you're more bound to your beliefs, or that you are bound to a high degree of beliefs, I think works perfectly in that kind of setting. Pulling it out of there, I'm curious, right? Because here I think your morality can be more fluid. You still have these beliefs, but you're not maybe as confined as you would be in Pendragon. So I'm going to be curious how they see that work. But really good so far. It's a beautiful book, well laid out. I'm excited to keep delving in here. I didn't even bother not putting the part 1 in the title, because I have under no illusion I was going to get through 300 pages in one stream. There's a lot of stuff I just kind of glanced over and looked at, because it's more or less background for someone like Brian Smith, who doesn't have much background in the Dune games, and is wondering if they can just jump in here without having read all the books and seen all the movies. I think it seems like, just glancing through it, that you have plenty of background stuff. I think you'll be just fine reading this stuff. And like I said, I don't think the books get into great detail anyway, so you're going to have plenty of room to just fill in with whatever the authors have filled in here, whatever you want to fill in. I have a Gamus wants to know part 2, probably on Monday, I would suspect. With these kind of things, I like to try to do them while the iron is hot, so to speak, unless it's going to be like when I did Muster, and it's like I'm on part 82. In that case, I might spread it out a little bit, but I try to do them all in a row. So, and I will try to, if I have the wherewithal. If you have your notification stuff turned on, I used to be better at it. I kind of fell off the wagon. I'm going to try to get back on the scheduling aspect. So this one I was able to schedule it about a half hour in advance. And I hope folks got notified. If not, oh well. But I will try to put the scheduling in there so that we can be ready to go and live. But yeah, check back on Monday. Monday we'll keep going with part 2. We will get into creating the house, which seems pretty awesome. So yeah, and just shout out again to Modiphius. They really were. Look, I'm a small channel. Maybe you'll watch this years from now and you'll say, like, my gosh, look at the empire Hexed Press is now. Right now, I am by far a minor house, if I'm a house at all. So I reach out to folks sometimes for things I'm interested in that I either just can't afford, or or it's just really it's more about, like, I just can't spend the money at the moment. And Modiphius was very easy to reach out to. They were very responsive and just really easy to kind of talk to. It's not really about, oh, hey, they sent me stuff, so now I gotta say they're great. No, because even if they had said no, the fact is that when I reached out to them, they were just really nice and just responsive. I keep trying to get a hold of Chaosium for new Pendragon to work with that, and I cannot get a hold of anybody. So it was very interesting the last couple of weeks, like a tale of two different publishers. Whereas Modiphius was super helpful and super responsive right away, and just made it like I'm dealing with a human being, and whatever happens in this case was very positive. Even if not, I would have felt like, hey, they talked to me, they actually responded to me. And with Chaosium, it's like I'm speaking into a void. So I just really appreciate that and just want to shout them out for that. Free League's another one. Yeah, Free League is awesome. Um, Super nice. Also, every time that I've dealt with them, I have looked at a little bit of Harn. I'd like to do more Harn from Columbia Games. Uh, but yeah, I kickstarted some of the Harn books. I should do some Harn at some point. I think I looked at one of the Harn books when I first got the Kickstarter back in, Kickstarter stuff in. 'Cause I just wanted some of that core Harn set just for kind of for future. But yeah, I should do more Harn stuff. But I'd love to do, we'll finish up, we'll continue to do Dune. I'd like to do some of these other systems and settings and things like I said. Pendragon's on my bucket list. I have older versions of Pendragon. I have the Great Pendragon campaign from, I think, whatever, 7th edition. I have that core book. I have the box set, I think, of Pendragon. I think it's 1st edition Pendragon. So it's not like I require Chaosium to do Pendragon, but I know they got new materials out, so I kind of want to look at them. I don't have it in me to get them right now, and we'll see. Maybe I'll be able to get a hold of some someday. But I don't want to turn this into a Chaosium thing. But I just want to really just thank Modiphius because it was super helpful, easy to communicate with, which is really all I can ask for, right? Humans showing humanity, which is very much in the Dune universe, since they have kicked out the thinking machines. We might need to do some kicking out of thinking machines ourselves. But that's another topic for another day. Folks, enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on. Look for more Dune. I'm going to try it. I won't just consider it Monday unless for some reason I can't stream. But we will continue. And have a great weekend if it's a Friday, whenever you're watching or listening. And game on. Talk to you later. Bye now.